The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Rick Francis, 1970 Hilton graduate. You've done a lot in your life. Thanks for coming on the Big H Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
A lot that we're going to cover in this session with you, and I'm really looking forward to it. The little that I know of you, I'm very impressed with things that you've done in your life. Something I'd like to start off with, and I usually go right to biographical, but tell me about a daily routine in the life of Rick Francis in the year 2024.
Well, in the year 2024, I retired in 2015, but as it turns out, I didn't really retire. After I retired from my long career, I started my own business in real estate. So as a retiree with a second career, basically my day starts and my partner, wife, lifelong friend kind of laughs at me because I get up at 6:47 a.m., not 6:45 and not 6:50. I get up at 6:47 a.m. and I get my day going. I'm a real estate agent, so basically I start out the morning putting out fires. Okay, and once the fires are put out, then I go to work starting to acquire new business. As a real estate agent, I'm with Remax Plus. What ends up happening is you're self-employed. So every day you wake up unemployed. Mm-hmm. And what you do that day is going to make a difference on, whether you sell houses or whether you don't sell houses.
So that's your present day, and I think we'll get into a little bit more of what led you into selling real estate and your jobs before that. If we go back in time, tell us a little bit about your parents, where you were born, where you grew up, and your siblings.
Okay. I was born in Rochester. We lived in what is now known as the Swilberg neighborhood. My grandparents lived across the street. My dad's name was Richard. He went by Dick Francis. And my mother's name was Eleanor, and she went by Boots. Mm-hmm. We have no idea why she went by Boots, but everybody knew her as Boots. Nobody knew her real name. I have an older sister. She's 11 months older than me. And then I have another sister that's younger than me by 4 years. And I had a brother that was born 8 years after I was born. When I was 6 years old, we left the city. I was going to Catholic school at the time, and we moved to Hilton and began going to what we called at that time the Protestant school. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was the public school. And I grew up on North Avenue. Okay. My dad worked at Kodak. The reason we moved there is they had just finished constructing the Parkway. We lived on North Avenue. He jumped on the Parkway. He was able to get to work pretty quickly. My mom was an at-home mom in those days in the 50s. Most moms were at-home moms. And we went to school at Hilton, all of us, for our careers.
Now, tell me a little bit about your siblings. I think there's Karen, Kathy, and then Kevin, who's left us. But right. Tell us a little bit about growing up with those three.
Yep. My older sister was the perfect child. Mm-hmm. So she did everything right. She got good grades. And anything that I did wrong, she made sure my parents knew about it. And then there was me, and I was the imperfect child. I was a surprise child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I kind of marched to the beat of a different drum. I enjoyed every day. But by enjoying every day, I tended to get into a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Not serious trouble, not breaking laws or anything like that, but just not marching to the same drum my sister marched to.
Mm-hmm.
If anything happened in school, the community was small. My parents knew about it before I even got off the school bus.
Mm-hmm.
It was very different times. And my parents, my dad was also in the Navy. And he was a chief petty officer with the Navy for many, many years. He retired from that after 40 years, I believe. So, he was not there a lot. And so I pretty much took care of the outside of the house as I was growing up. My next sister, Kathy, born 4 years after me, she was pretty perfect too.
Mm-hmm.
And she took care of the inside of the house.
She still is.
Oh, she's still perfect, yeah. So, between the two of us, we had the outside covered, we had the inside covered. And then my younger brother, Kevin, many people know him as Mo,
Mm-hmm.
He was 8 years younger than me. So there was a distance there. And when we were younger, we weren't really close,
Mm-hmm.
but we got very close as we both were adults. And he was a fireman.
And you said your dad worked at Kodak?
Worked at Kodak.
And then when you said he was in the Navy and he was a chief petty officer, he wasn't around much. Did that mean that he was stationed in other parts of the country or the world, or what did that mean?
No, he was in the reserves. So he would do his weekend every month. And then once a year, he'd be gone for a couple of weeks every year. And for a good part of my growing up, he was assigned to a ship that sat right in the port of Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
And there were days when, we'd have the opportunity to go on the ship, actually. And once a year, they'd have a family cruise where you could they take you out into the lake and bring you back. So he was a chef, by the way.
He was a chef?
He was a chef.
So did your family eat well too then at home, or did mom do it?
Very well when dad was cooking.
In terms of growing up, I would think 4 kids in a family, that's a decent sized family. What was it like growing up with a big group? So you had your brother that was 8 years younger, and then your other sister, I think that was 4 years older?
No, 11 months older and 4 years younger.
Okay.
2 sisters.
All right. And how was the village of Hilton at that time when you were growing up? And let's say, like, you got here in, was it 6 years old?
Yes.
Okay.
1959.
So you're at the Protestant school?
Yeah.
And then what was the village like at that time?
Norman Rockwell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're familiar with Norman
Mm-hmm.
Rockwell and his pictures and things like that was Hilton. It was at the time not considered close to the city because the suburbs hadn't really grown out yet. The closest place to get any pizza was a 30-minute one-way drive.
Mm-hmm.
The closest place to get clothing was about a 20-minute drive onto Dewey Avenue. Northgate Plaza was the closest. The malls weren't there. Pretty much everything was happening in the city.
What are some fond early memories you have of your family and the village?
Well, there were a lot of them. The village was the center of activity.
Mm-hmm.
Everything outside the village was incredibly rural. It was all cornfields. It was apple orchards, cherry orchards, peach orchards, many dairy farms. In fact, many of our classmates, grew up on farms, and many of those folks took over the farms when their parents retired. So it was actually kind of fun
Mm-hmm.
because we just ran free, and there were no worries about anything bad ever happening. It was just a lot of space. We had, for instance, behind our house, we had a huge field, which is probably 200 acres. I mean, enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't own it, but every summer we got the lawnmowers out and we mowed a baseball field and we put up a backstop,
Mm-hmm.
and every day we had a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were always busy. If you walked back into the house during the day, Mom would look at us and say, "What are you doing inside?" I gotta go to the bathroom, whatever. And then out again we would go. In the wintertime, maybe because I was small, maybe it was different, maybe not, but I can just remember mounds and mounds of snow. It came off the lake, and there was just always a ton of snow. And so we'd be outside making all sorts of, snow forts and snow tunnels, and there was never a shortage of cold or snow with that. And then also in the summer, we lived about a mile from the lake, and we'd go swimming every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before they were controlling the level of the lake. So the beaches were huge, and they were all sandy beaches. And so we'd go out, and, if the weather was conducive, we'd be swimming every day. A real special day, we'd go to Hamlin Beach,
Mm-hmm.
which was about a 10-minute ride
Mm-hmm.
from our house, but a 60-second ride from our house, when you were right in the water. So
Now, you mentioned that sometimes you went to the beat of your own drum. What was
I did.
a problematic incident for Rick Francis in school that maybe sister
Okay.
would let mom and dad know?
I don't remember anything specific, but I do remember my parents standing on the front step when the school bus pulled up. But I was not stupid,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not a student at that point in my life. That changed. But I don't believe I ever took a book home in school. But what I did do is I remembered every single thing a teacher said.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was important and they were teaching it, I remembered it.
And I guess reflecting a little bit on those teachers, my first question was, who was the principal at the high school at that time?
I'm guessing it was Mr. Hurd, maybe.
Okay.
There might have been a couple during that period.
And was Merton Williams built at that point as the middle school?
Well, it was built when it was finished when we were in the second half of the year in 7th grade. The first half of that year, we did split sessions. And high school students went in the morning. I think they got out about 11. And then the junior high kids went into the same school. It's West Ave School, or, at that point, we'd get out like at 4:00 in the afternoon. So we were one of first classes into the junior high when it first opened.
So going back on those teachers, are there any teachers that made an indelible impression upon you, or maybe you don't, but you remember what they said?
Yeah. Well, Edith Schreppel.
Yep.
She was an English teacher. I think she's still alive in her 90s now.
I had her as an English teacher.
Yeah, I was in drama club, and I was in her English classes, and she always seemed to give me the benefit of the doubt. So that worked out well for me, and it had an impact on me. Also, my language teachers. I know Mrs. Butler taught Latin. I took Latin, and then my last year of Latin, I think it was Miss Lashender, taught Latin after Mrs. Butler left. And then I tell you a story about him sometime.
Now, before we came on camera, you were talking a little bit about your drama experience in high school.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the play or plays you were involved in. And
yeah, in my last 2 years, I was in in the background in a musical, Carousel, and then as a senior, I had one of the lead roles in The Odd Couple. I was Felix.
Okay, and Felix is played by, he was we would call it the OCD one.
Correct.
Did your personal relate to your drama role?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No. I hope not.
And you also told me there was an interesting story that occurred prior to the performance. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was when I was a senior. I got one of the leads, And here I am, Felix, and we're coming up on play week. And as we approached play week, I got sick. And we didn't know what was wrong with me, but it would come and it would go. But when it came, I was very, very sick. And then it would go away and I'd be fine for a couple of days. Well, a couple of days before the play, I got very, very sick. That time, my parents took me to the doctor. They took me to the hospital. And as it turns out, I had chronic appendicitis. Okay. So they wanted to operate right away. And the play was like in 2 days. So I'm like, well, we can't. And they said, well, what are we going to do here? And I said, well, if it's chronic, it comes and it goes. Let's wait till after the play. And then, we'll go from there. So I believe I was actually in the hospital the night the play was supposed to occur. So they had to cancel the senior play, postpone, not cancel.
Right.
And there was a big to-do because the senior play had never been postponed ever. So after working with the doctors and my parents and everybody, the plan was, okay, we'll wait till he gets a little better. We'll do the play next weekend. And then right after the play, the next morning, he's in and we'll do the surgery. So we get through the week, and I made it through the week fine. And we get to opening night. And in the play, there's a scene where Felix all of a sudden has a severe stomach attack. Well, I was pretty good at knowing what a severe stomach attack felt like.
Don't mean to laugh.
It was funny, actually. So we get to the part in the play, and I'm thinking in my head, oh, this could be really good. And it hits, and I just really hammed it up. Everybody in the audience, it was a small town, everybody knew that I had been sick. Everybody knew I was going in the hospital the next morning for surgery. And the whole audience thought I'm having an attack. And there was like a whole rumble and uproar in the audience when I did that scene. So for me, it was actually kind of a fun scene, to do as part of the play. And I think it added to the overall fun of the night once everybody realized, oh, it's part of the play.
Now, was it just one night of the production, or did you do
there were
several?
2 nights.
And was Mrs. Streppel leading the play?
She was, yeah.
And so I assume there were no understudies that could take your role with your illness and anything like that.
I don't remember that, but it was a big, big, big role. It's almost a 2-person play. There were 2 or 3 other people that came on and off here and there, but it was mostly a 2-person play. So it would have been difficult to have a backup like that.
Were you given any awards based on your performance?
I did win the Senior Acting Award. And to be honest with you, that night I was acting.
Well, I'm really glad you made it through. Did you ever have a problem like memorizing lines, or did you know what I mean? Did you pursue that role, or did someone come to you and say, hey, Rick, you'd be really good. Go for the senior play?
I didn't have any trouble memorizing the lines once I decided I was going to memorize the lines. But the memorization happened a couple of days before the play.
So Mrs. Streppel was probably
She was sweating it.
Rick,
She was sweating it out.
Rick.
Absolutely. You would know.
How big was your senior class? Like how many students?
Yeah, I think we were about 246.
246?
Yeah.
That's starting to get bigger, I guess. So when you're going through your classes, you mentioned Latin, and Mrs. Lashender, Ms. Lashender taught me Spanish. Explain about Latin, because I think kids in the school now, they don't understand, like, if you were able to take Latin, how that would help you with other languages.
Well, Latin is one of the root languages to all the other languages. And at that time, it was still used in the Catholic Church. And we went to church. And I went to church at a time when often the entire Mass would be in Latin. So I kind of had exposure to it already. I hadn't had exposure to the other languages too much at that time. So I decided, okay, well, I guess I should take a language, and this would be a good one. And I still remember the very first sentence I ever learned in Latin. Semper ubi sub ubi.
And that means?
Always wear underwear.
I was going to say, usually, in Spanish, we learned "Me llamo Miguel." You learn my name is Miguel. That's a new one. Name some of your friends or classmates that you had in high school.
Well, believe it or not, my life partner, Jan Rothel Starwald,
Mm-hmm.
I met in first grade.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like there were a whole lot of one-on-one best friends and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. We lived in a rural community. There wasn't a lot of transportation. There weren't a lot of homes that had two cars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when Dad went to work, there's no transportation. So it was more or less just a group of kids, a group of students, and then your neighbors. Greg Slater lived next door.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Rousseau lived a couple houses down. The Newharts, I don't know if you know the name Sandy Blonsky.
Yes.
Okay, Sandy.
Isn't she a realtor?
She is.
Okay.
Yeah, she's my broker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good plug.
So her and her family lived next door. And then the rest of the friends were just spread out over lots of miles. It was also a farming community, so a lot of the students in Hilton, they'd go home and they'd work on the farms. So playtime wasn't like playtime is today, and communication isn't the same as communication is today. You saw each other at school, you saw each other at school events, or you saw each other at events in the village.
Mm-hmm. I was going to follow that up because obviously nowadays there's technology and internet and cell phones and everything. What did your friends do for fun once they were able to get away from the farm or stuff? Maybe even hobbies that you had when you had the time.
Yeah, I didn't have hobbies because I worked a lot. Okay, I worked at the Super Duper.
I remember that.
Yeah, so when you work at the Super Duper, you go to school and then you go to work at the Super Duper,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go home and you go to school the next day.
Mm-hmm.
We had Little League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people were involved in the Little League Baseball. I was not a great Little League Baseball player. I mentioned that we did play baseball in the summer, like most days. We swam because the lake was right there. We'd go swimming. In fact, my class ring is in Lake Ontario.
Oh, no.
Off of Hilton Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got my name in it if anybody finds it.
Well, let's hope someone does. Earlier we were talking about like the culture of, when you graduated in the 70s, but you wanted to say in the 60s. Tell us a little bit about that era, that decade.
Yeah, well, the 60s were interesting because everything was changing. The music was changing. And the music, even today, my son said to me when he was probably about 15 years old, he said, "Dad, you grew up when they had the best music ever." Mm-hmm. And he was right, because that was all changing. I can remember when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan the first time they were on Ed Sullivan. And, what people wore, that was changing. There were very strict rules in school about what you could wear to school and what you couldn't wear to school. And that was all starting to be challenged, at that point. So it was a time of change. It was a fun time. When I was younger, we had one television station, but when I was in high school, we had 3 television stations, Right. So all of that was changing. And we pretty much just found things to do and made our own fun and tried to stay out of trouble. There was a time when in the winter, we had built a fort along the road, and at night when the cars came down, we pelted them with snowballs. Until one night, the car we pelted was a sheriff's car.
Oh, no.
Well, the good news is he didn't catch us.
Right. You were still too quick at that time?
Yeah.
So then you're approaching graduation. How did you end up picking your college? What college and what'd you do?
Okay. My family wasn't in a position to pay for college for me. So at the time, I was working at the Super Duper. Okay. I was also working in the last year of high school at McCurdy's. McCurdy's was at what is now Greece Center Mall. It wasn't that big at the time. So I had those two jobs, and I believe the cost to go to MCC for a semester was like $250. So I saved my money. My parents very much wanted me to go in the Navy. My father had been in the Navy, his brothers had been in the Navy, and it was just part of their plan for me. But it was not in my plan for me. And part of it was a little of the rebelliousness of it. I wanted to do my own thing. So it was clear to my parents that I wasn't college material. And yet MCC had an open acceptance at that point. So I saved up my money. I went to MCC, and I got a third job when I was at MCC working in the controller's office. So I worked 3 part-time jobs, went to school full-time. I lived in an apartment off of Park Avenue at the time, and I got my degree from MCC. When I started at MCC, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But when I finished at MCC, I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. So from MCC, I applied to SUNY Fredonia. My grades were good at MCC. So I moved on to SUNY Fredonia. And again, I had to keep working. I worked at Kodak in the summers. I worked at SUNY Fredonia. I worked what's called the night desk. Back in those days, they used to lock the residence halls at 11 o'clock at night. And anybody coming in had to come in, and you had to unlock the door and make sure that they belonged there and let them in. If they had a guest, the guest had to sign in. So from 11 at night until 7 in the morning, I worked the night desk 5 days a week. So I scheduled my classes so that all my classes were in the afternoon. Then I'd eat dinner. I'd do some homework. I'd work the night desk where I got all my homework done because there wasn't much else to do between 11 and 7 a.m. At 7 a.m., I'd go to breakfast, I'd go to bed, and then I'd get up at noon, go to lunch, and go to classes in the afternoon. So that was pretty much my routine at Fredonia.
Sounds like a good plan. When you mentioned like you worked 3 jobs for MCC and then during MCC and even at Fredonia, what did you learn about yourself being able to balance all of that in order to get a degree?
Well, part of it was I needed to prove it to myself that I could do it. By the way, high school grades, not great. Graduated in the middle of my class, never did homework. College, I graduated with honors. So I guess I kind of grew up a bit there, and I just learned that I can, I can. So anything that I set out to do, and I still to this day do it. I fully commit, and if I'm going to do it, I know I can do it. And I don't doubt myself.
And then when you were at Fredonia, what major did you undertake and where did that take you?
I had 2 majors. I had an education major and I had a math major. So when I came out of Fredonia, I had a degree in education, I had a degree in math, and I received my teaching certificate in N through 6 elementary and 7 through 12 math.
And then did you have to student teach, I would think?
I did.
Okay. And where did you do that?
That was kind of a fun time. I did my student teaching in Rio de Janeiro.
Really?
At the American School.
Okay.
Yeah. SUNY had a program. And that program, even though I was going through Brockport, program was through SUNY Brockport. Okay, I went to Fredonia, and I had to kind of do some extra steps to make that happen. But the way it all came down is my best friend at college and I saw this posting, and we thought, oh, that would be really cool. We have to student teach anyhow, but we may as well do it in Rio de Janeiro. So we both applied. I got accepted. He didn't. And there were 4 students from the state of New York that ended up going to the American school in Rio de Janeiro. And I lived on Ipanema Beach, oceanfront with a family, and taught at the American school. And at the American school, there were students there from all over the world. So not all of them spoke Portuguese. That some of them were speaking Spanish, some of them were speaking, other languages. And then during that stint, they moved me out to a one-room school out in the jungle, but it was on the coast, right on the water. And there were, I think, 9 students going to a one-room school that was sponsored by the American school. Their fathers were engineers, and they were building a nuclear power plant at that site. So I had 9 students of all ages from, elementary school right through high school. And for, several weeks, I worked there teaching all of the levels and all of the specials like art and music and physical education. We would go surfing for physical education. That was fun.
Wow, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
how many weeks or months did you do that in Rio de Janeiro?
Well, I was in Rio for a half year.
Okay.
And it was at the point where I could have stayed and they were going to offer me a job, but I still had 1 semester left of school to finish.
Okay.
And I knew if I stayed, I would never finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up coming back and did that last semester at Fredonia.
Did you get homesick at all?
No.
No? You were pretty good. And
Yeah. It was an interesting place because Rio today is much different than Rio was in 1970. It was a military government. And, they were very careful about advising us to say, here, when they see somebody doing something wrong, they shoot first. And if you're still alive, then they ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
The first night we were there, they shot someone right outside. We stayed in an apartment just one night before they moved us to the families. And they shot somebody right outside her. So it's like, oh no, what do we do?
And you said that the 9 students, most of their fathers or parents were engineers.
Yes.
What was it like working for students where their parents are pretty high functioning and have achieved a lot?
Yeah, you didn't see the dads a lot then because they were working all the time, but you saw the moms, and the moms were very supportive.
Good. So then you come back from Rio de Janeiro, you think you had 1 semester left?
Correct.
And as you're finishing that semester, I assume you started applying to schools. Where did you end up next?
Okay. I ended up getting a job in East Rochester School District, and I taught 2nd grade there for 3 years. And after that 3-year period, East Rochester was shrinking. I was at the bottom of the pile seniority-wise and didn't have any tenure at that point, and there was no guarantee they were going to have a position for me the next year. So I applied to other districts, and I got a job at Fairport.
Also in the elementary, obviously. Probably,
right. At that point at Fairport, I was teaching 5th grade, and then I also taught high school equivalency for the town of Greece, math, and I also taught swimming for the town of Greece.
What did you think of teaching elementary education? Your cup of tea, or did it wear on you?
No, it didn't wear on me. It was okay. It was enjoyable.
And then swimming, were you a good swimmer?
Yeah.
So Lake Ontario did you well then?
Yeah. Yeah. In the summers, I ran a pool club in Fairport. And, we did swimming lessons. We had a swim team and that. So that was kind of a guaranteed job every summer and kept me focused on purpose.
So when you taught at East Rochester and then you moved to Fairport, were you still living in the same place, or did you move residence every time you took the new job?
When I was in East Rochester, I lived out in Ontario, the town of Ontario.
Okay.
And when I lived out there, it was my brother-in-law's aunt, and she had a little setup in her basement. So I lived in her basement for a couple of years. And it was like a little apartment and everything. The only problem is the ceilings there were about 5.5 feet high, and I'm 6 foot
He's tall.
I'm 6'2".
You had
So
a hard time in our basement.
I lived there for a couple of years, and then when I got the job in Fairport, I had already moved, and as it turns out, my apartment was very close to the school.
What were some of the challenges of teaching those first 7 years? I mean, if you could think a few.
Well, the challenges then were less than the challenges today. That I will give you. Parents were always very supportive. Parents never seemed to question, the teachers. I think the students were more reverent as students.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so the only frustration I had when I was teaching is I was itchy. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to know, what is it like when you don't go to school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was approaching 30 at the time when I left teaching, and I was just ready to experience something different, I guess is what you would say, how I would put it.
Would you consider yourself a risk taker at that time?
That was a risk.
And then, so you retired from teaching then, right?
I did.
Okay. And then where'd you go next?
I got a job marketing for a relatively new technology company. Now, this was in 1981, someplace in there. Technology companies then didn't have a lot of technology because technology was just starting to come out. But I got a job working for a company that provided a combination of ID cards and a hardwired computer to manage food service participation at colleges and universities.
Okay.
So if I'm on the Monday through Friday meal plan, when I go into the dining hall, my card would be read and it would say, yep, you can eat this meal. Or it would say, nope, it's the weekend, you don't have this meal. And or it would say, you already ate once. They used to do meal tickets. They switched over, and meal tickets kind of got handed out to everybody. So there was a lot of difficulty for the food service companies to keep control of that. So this solved their problem. And as technology started to move very quickly, our computers that we used changed, and we were able to actually almost control everything on campus. It would open a door. You could go vote for your student government. You could go in the library, and if you're eligible to take out a book, or if you're way overdue on stuff, you can't take books out. So it kind of grew over the campuses, to the point where it eventually was able to hold cash. And you could go to cash operations, and parents could deposit money, into their child's account, and you could use it in the bookstore or use it over at the student center, things like that. So that's where I focused for 4 years.
And what was that transition like with the difference from the teaching world to the marketing position?
It felt like I was skipping school for the first year. Literally.
Yeah.
I had never been outside during the day. So it was
go to lunch.
It was amazing for me. But the interesting thing is, I started marketing. I ended up moving over to sales after 6 months, because after 6 months, I said, I don't have enough to do here. I said, well, how about you do sales part-time? Sales was the last thing I ever wanted to do. When I left teaching, I didn't know what I did want to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. The only thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want to be in sales. So here I am a year later, and I'm in sales. The next year, I was the top salesperson in the company. So that kind of took off my sales career.
Okay. And then how long were you in that sales career before you ended up getting into Remax or your real
Okay.
estate?
I was in the high technology arena for a long time. I moved to a company. This is very interesting, kind of a fun story. After 4 years, I went to the president of the company. We were a small company, maybe 50 people. And I said, I really appreciate everything, but I feel like I have a whole lot more growing to do. And right now, everybody's coming to me for information. And I need to do more again. Same thing when I left teaching. So I told him, I want you to be aware I'm going to be looking for a job, but it doesn't mean I'm going to leave. I'd have to really find the right thing. So as it turns out, I applied to a company who also provided technology solutions to higher education, but they provided the big stuff. They provided the financial systems, the registration systems, the human resource systems, all the major systems that you actually need to run a university behind the scenes, the financial aid systems and that. And so I got an interview, and I went to my boss then. And that's the first time I told him that, I have an interview and I just want you to know that it's just an interview, but I'm going to go to it. And he says, well, what day and time is your interview? And I told him, and he says, mine's right after yours.
Oh.
he had applied to the same company. Well,
and that was your boss?
That was my boss.
Okay.
The amazing thing is they hired both of us.
No kidding.
And he was still my boss at the new company. and he was a real mentor to me. So it was like heaven for me, because he had given me so much from a mentorship standpoint. For me to be able to move on and do more things and still have him there was amazing. So.
What characteristics, I guess, did you think you started with, and then characteristics of yourself that you developed that ended up bringing you to marketing and sales, which at one point you didn't think you ever wanted to be in sales? Were you a people person, or,
Actually, I think I'm pretty much an introvert. Believe
Well, that was going to be my next question. Introvert, that's when you don't want to be the life of the party.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right. Or, I'd rather be home.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I put my sales hat on, it's like I'm a different person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a son. He's very reserved in everything he does. But when you put snow skis on or water skis on his feet, he's a completely different person. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like I am when I'm working, I can turn it all on. And for me, it's not an act or anything, but it's a competitive thing. Mm-hmm. It's the challenge, to be able to sell, this solution. In real estate, it's the ability to be able to not just help a buyer buy a house, but it's the ability to be able to beat everybody else that wanted to buy that house. So there's a lot of competitiveness in me, but there's a lot of introvertness in me too.
Tell us a little bit about being a real estate agent. Like everyone, I don't know. My father was one, he did it for side money and everything. Mm-hmm. But how did you go about becoming one, and in terms of testing and all that? For me,
it was a little bit different than I think for most people. I had retired, from working in the high technology arena. I had finished my career in international sales, and I was traveling all over the world. And there were a lot of dangers associated with that. But with real estate, I got to sleep in my own bed every night. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I took $10,000 of my own money and I put it in a separate account. And that was, when you're in real estate, you're self-employed. So that was my money to start my business. You do have to affiliate with a broker. I'm affiliated with Remax Plus. Okay. So I had my money set aside, and it was basically starting to build a business from the bottom up. I spent my first days, I made a list of 100 people I knew. Now recognize I was never home for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So the 100 people was hard for me to come up with, because most of the people I knew were just very, very close to me. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't been working in the area and hadn't built many relationships and had to start that part of it from scratch. But I took that, I wrote a letter. I sent it out to them. I started a mailing. I connected myself with some other real estate agents. I did a lot of their open houses for them. And people always say, I never sold a house at an open house. I've almost always gotten customers at an open house. So my business began to grow. I never had any pressure because I didn't have to sell a house to eat. Okay. Because I had retired and I had retirement money. So that was never a pressure on me. And so I could really focus on choosing the right kind of business and making sometimes the hard decisions. Some business you just need to walk away from because there are some people that will never be pleased. And you can spend a lot of time spinning your wheels on that. But I enjoy sleeping in my own bed every night. So, I get up in the morning, I'd say, okay, what do I need to do today? I make a list. These are all the things I want to accomplish today. And I would work every day down through that list. Things come up with real estate that you don't expect. So if I didn't finish the list, those other things would be at the top of the list for the next day. And I was very regimented in terms of putting it together. And I learned from a lot of, really successful people too. You have to be willing to learn.
And going back a little bit to your 30 years of international travel, I think.
Right.
Explain what that was like, not sleeping in your own bed, what countries you visited, some of your experiences that you've had.
Okay. My initial sales career, I started out just in the U.S. And then the last 15 years of my career, I was working almost primarily internationally. Travel-wise, I handled the Coca-Cola account for my company. Well, Coca-Cola, they have bottlers all over the world. So I've traveled to between 40 and 50 countries. The common ones that the Italys, the Germanys, and all of those. And then some that might not be considered so common. I had an opportunity to go back to Rio de Janeiro several times, which that was actually kind of fun. Argentina. I worked with a client in Argentina where you would take a flight from Buenos Aires. It was about an hour and a half flight. It would land on a dirt runway. You get off the plane. And then the next day, that same plane came back and you got on it and you left. There were no other planes coming or going from that city on that day. So once you're there, you're kind of there. So I had those. I had a wonderful experience in Shanghai, China, where I got there and Coca-Cola had made the reservation for me at the hotel. So I go to the hotel and check in, and that they put me in this suite that was more than a suite. It was this huge penthouse. And there was a huge living room. There was a huge bedroom. The shades came down. Now, back then, you didn't have that technology here much, but shades would just come down by themselves. To turn the water on in the bathroom, you just had to wave your hand over something and the water would come on. And I'm thinking, who do they think I am? The president of Coca-Cola or something? And I'm thinking, I think they have the wrong guy here. So that was a wonderful experience. And that particular one, you got to ride on their bullet, which, the train went like 250 miles an hour from the airport into the city. Wow. So that was quite an experience. And then there's the downside, a lot of third world countries, that I went to. One specific in India. I was in a city in India and I needed to fly to, it was Bombay then, but it's Mumbai now. They changed all their names. And so I flew domestically into Mumbai, and the domestic airport and the international airport are 5 miles apart, but they're on the same property. They're just at different ends of the property. You can't get to one to the other without leaving one airport, going out onto the public streets, and then going into the other airport. Well, I had a close connection. When I say close connection, it was probably about an hour and a half. I come out of the airport and it was literally a monsoon. It was pouring so hard. I've never in my life seen it rain that hard. And in order to get to the other airport, the international airport, you had to take a bus. there were more than 1,000 people waiting in line to take the buses, and the buses would just come one at a time. It was going to be hours and hours standing in a monsoon with my luggage, and I still had, 20 hours to fly to get home, and I was just going to be drenched. So as I'm coming out, and when you travel a lot, you learn to make really good decisions, and you learn to be really aware of everything that's going on around you, and to not make bad decisions. Well, somebody comes up to me, he says, "Are you going to the international airport?" Well, I'm the obvious American, okay, in India. So I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Would you like to take my taxi?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, great, I got a taxi." Well, it was a bad decision. So anyhow, we get into his taxi. We leave the airport. As we leave the airport, he pulls over. Another person gets in the car. Then he turns the opposite way of where we're going, and we're going and we're going. And I'm thinking, this is not good. I'm not going in the right direction. I have an idea of where the international airport is. We're going the wrong way. So I'm in a bad spot. So I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get out of this bad spot? It's unlikely. So I finally said to him, "Listen, I know what's going on. I know what you want. Take me to the international airport. I'll give you all the money in my wallet." He had no idea how much money I had in my wallet, but I had a little over $100 in my wallet. So he says, "Give it to me now." I figure, well, I'm going to give it to him now or later. I give it to him. He turns around. He takes me over to the international airport. Talk about dodging a bullet. About 2 weeks later, the same thing happened to another employee in our company, and he was beat up horribly.
Oh my!
I mean, by the time he finally came back to work, his whole face was all still bruised and everything. So, yeah, given the circumstances, you think you can always make good decisions. At the time, I thought, oh, this is a good decision. I'm not going to be a dish rag all the way home, but it was a bad decision that I was lucky to get out of.
So when you're traveling in that, first of all, it's hard to move on from that. But would you eat international cuisine and stuff, or did you get to
Yeah. In India, I would only eat fried foods because frying, it kills everything. In China, most of the food was pretty good, but I did get very, very sick. And I was sick on my flight home, which was like a forever flight. I think I spent almost the entire time in the bathroom in the airplane. Yeah. And I had, at that time, I had upgraded to first class because I had all of these miles from flying. So I upgraded first class. I think I sat in the bathroom more than I sat in my first class seat. I was horribly sick.
So you put a lot of miles on then.
Yeah.
So throughout this whole career, tell me a little bit about your family. You mentioned earlier before that you had 4 kids. Tell me about them.
Yeah, I got married in 1980. We had 4 children. My oldest, his name is Michael. He works at Wegmans corporate, and he's responsible. He's just getting a new job right now, but he is responsible for overseeing all of the development of Wegmans brands product. Okay. And then my daughter, next one down, born 2.5 years later, Emily, she lives just north of Pittsburgh, and she's self-employed, and she contracts out to the gas exploration companies and does title searches for them. Next one, 2.5 years later.
Spacing them out.
I know, is Megan. And Megan is a labor and delivery nurse at Unity Hospital.
Oh, nice.
And interestingly enough, she has a 4-year business degree from Fredonia.
Oh.
And came out of that and wasn't sure really what she wanted to do. She decided she wanted to be a nurse. She went back, got her 2-year RN nursing degree, and has been working at Unity, and she now has her 4-year RN nursing degree, and she loves labor and delivery. And what's ironic is my oldest son, Michael, delivered his son in the front yard of his house. So she's the labor and delivery nurse, but he's delivering his own kid in the front yard in December of his house.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He pulled it off beautifully.
He did it. He was the
Oh,
doctor?
yeah. He literally delivered the baby.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
He was out hunting, right in back. They have an
Uh-huh.
orchard behind him. They live in Pulteneyville.
Uh-huh.
And my daughter-in-law called him. She says, I think we need to go to the hospital. So he was there like within 2 minutes. He was just out back. She gets in the car. She looks at him and she says, I need to get out of this car now. The baby's coming right now. He got her out of the car, laid her down on the grass, and immediately delivered a baby.
Oh, wow. You need Megan there at that time, but hey.
Yeah.
And then you had a fourth child?
I've got a fourth, Tim.
Okay.
And Tim has his electrical engineering degree from RIT. Tim worked for a while as an electrical engineering degree, but it wasn't his passion. So his passion is he's a contractor. He likes to design things and build things. And so he does general contracting now and has his own business.
How many grandkids do you have, if you do have grandkids?
Okay, Jan and I together have 9.
Okay.
And they're from the ages of 4 up to 15.
What's it like being a grandpa?
Easy. Way easier than being a parent. Of course, you're always a parent.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But you just enjoy them.
And are you able to go visit them because you got one in Pittsburgh and then, whatever?
Yeah, we have some here. My oldest sons, his are younger, so they're just starting to get involved in activities and things like that. But Jan has 4 grandchildren. They're very involved in sports. They're older. We go to other games, basketball, baseball, soccer, in that. And then I've got 2 grandchildren down towards Pittsburgh, and the oldest one is 10. And she is in a fast pitch league, and she's a pitcher.
Okay.
And it's amazing to see that 10-year-old fast pitch that ball. You just can't believe a 10-year-old is doing that.
Yeah. She's pretty good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
And then my youngest grandson there is 8.
Okay.
And he's a really good baseball player.
Okay.
Very good. In fact, the older teams call him up when they need an extra player.
Oh, neat.
So, and it's very fun to watch him because he's a lot like I was. So it's nice to see that he's being kept busy and that he can be really good at that.
Do you have any like holidays that are traditions, like they all come to your place for Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Our place is the place. So, and even with the extended family, our place is the place generally. Everybody comes for Christmas, Thanksgiving, the holidays, things like that. So we gather together a lot.
You were mentioning, I think Tim he was an electrical engineer. Wasn't his passion, right? But what's your passion? Like, what's your passion? Very general question.
I guess
Like
it changes over your life.
Right.
What your passion might be. I think my passion now, I always tell myself, okay, I graduated in 1970, so anybody that can do the math knows that I'm over 70. Okay. And I just look back and I say, everything's okay. My kids are great. They all have good jobs. Everybody's doing well. And right now, for me and for my passion is to say, well, what can I give back? And so that's what I've been doing with a lot of my time right now. As a real estate agent, sometimes you have very busy times of the year. Sometimes you have very slow times of the year. The nice part is when you're around a holiday, it's very slow.
Right.
And when you're not, it can be very, very busy. So I am one of the founding members of the Hilton Alumni Association.
That led right into that. Talk a little bit about that evolution of that. Who's been in pivotal members of that too?
Okay. The Alumni Association grew out of the pandemic, I guess, is what you might want to say.
Right.
Our class, the class of 1970, was preparing for our 50-year reunion in the summer of 2020. Well, in March of 2020, everything got shut down.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing is we had about 160 people from the class of 70 coming to our reunion from all over. And all of a sudden, nobody's coming. So one of our classmates suggested that, well, maybe we can do something different and look at a different way to apply what we might have spent on the tickets for our reunion and put something together so we can give back to the community in some way. So we ultimately ended up coordinating it, putting a message out to all of our classmates, and within several weeks we had raised $20,000.
Wow.
And we took that $20,000, we created a 501c3. We incorporated within the state of New York, the Hilton Alumni Association, Inc. And we came up with a mission, that mission being connecting alumni with the community and the staff at Hilton while giving back, to the students. So we put that all together. That was about 2 years ago. And other people that have participated in that, Nancy Willihan Laporte is our president. Okay. I'm a part of that. We have a board that's been established. Al Taylor, who lives in Michigan, was one of the inspirations behind this. And he worked with us. He had been involved with several, 501c3s, helping us put it together. We put together some other people from the community. And since then, we've been raising money over the last 2 years, and we've been donating back to the school district in the form of classroom grants and senior scholarships.
Where do you see yourself? You're a big fundraiser guy. Like, what's your forte?
Well, yeah, I'm in sales. Okay. And I'm the only one in sales in our group. So I like raising money. And I guess I've been asking people for money all my life when you're in sales. So I've kind of headed up the whole fundraising side of things. I worked a deal with Nancy. I'll do the fundraising if you're the president. Okay, so that's what I've been doing, and it's funny. We're planning our casino night, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. It's April 13th. It's 7:00. The entire public is invited. It's going to be at the Hilton Exempts Club. You'll see signs on M&T Bank coming up at the end of this week, as well as in front of the Hilton Exempts Club, which is right across the street from Tops Market Plaza. And the point of casino night, and I think this is really important, is people say, well, I don't gamble. And the thing with casino night is you're not gambling because it's illegal to gamble. Okay. So the way it works is they are Las Vegas style games. There's roulette, there's craps, there's blackjack, there's poker, but they're not just games. The gaming company that we hire to come in and run those tables, they teach you how to play and they help you win. It's not like the real Las Vegas where you'll get an eye from somebody or whatever. The whole goal is they want everybody to win. And you can't win money, but what you can do is you can win prizes. And we've collected from our community over 100 different donations and prizes.
That's great.
That will be given out on the 13th. And they range, we have large screen TV, we have a handmade quilt, we have a couple of golf foursomes, one of them at Deerfield with a cart and everything. So there's a lot of gift certificates in that. This is kind of interesting. And I guess it's part of what makes me feel good about doing it is not just giving back, to the students and that, but you go into a business and you tell them what you're all about and you ask for a donation and they give you a donation. That might be a gift certificate. It might be a sponsorship, whatever. And then before you leave, they say, don't forget to come back next year. Oh, I mean, that's amazing.
Sure is.
So that's our community. That's kind of what Hilton, is all about when you think about it. It's a real community. It's not just a suburb. It's people that are saying, this is good. This is good for our community. This is good for our kids. And everybody that comes and everybody that participates has a great time. We have a band, we have a cash bar because we're not going to serve alcohol, but the cash bar is there. And then we have all of those prizes, which are some many amazing prizes. And it's a very fun night to come and bring your neighbors, bring your family, meet new people. For people who work in the school district, whether you're a teacher or a bus driver or whatever, to be able to get together and just have a whole lot of fun for one night.
Another night that you also sponsor is Trivia Night. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, Trivia Night was a lot of work on my part.
It was very well done because I went to the most recent one.
Yeah, so we did have a Trivia Night in the fall. It was in November, and we had it at the Dakota. We had many more people than we expected. Things were a little bit crowded there, which is good. And again, it was all sorts of questions, an opportunity to have fun, an opportunity for the restaurant to do a good business on a Wednesday night when they normally wouldn't be doing a good business. So getting back to connecting with the community and bringing more business into their establishments is a good thing for everybody to do. And we created questions. They were multiple choice. We kept track of scores, and we had winners, and even the last place team was able to win a prize.
Do you remember who won that? Was it the Lenhards, the veterinarians, or was it?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
they're quite the competitive. Well, Andrea Lenhard's very competitive,
yes.
But good for her. Who received the scholarship? Didn't you give out a scholarship last year to a
Charlie
senior?
Streb.
Charlie Streb
is one of the scholarships that the association gave out. Charlie was going into a trade, and usually people going into trades don't get scholarships. But part, again, of our mission is to say, well, we have, if you go to the awards nights, okay, it seems to be a lot of the same people getting the scholarships over and over again. We said, there are a lot of people moving on to jobs that may need some kind of training and or they may need equipment. If you're going to be a carpenter, you're going to need tools. If you're going to be an auto mechanic, you're going to need tools. So all of these kinds of things. So we're saying, how can other people that might not normally fall into the normal funnel of getting a scholarship, how can we satisfy some of those? So in fact, we're going to be talking to WMOCO. I think we've got 40 or 60 students from Hilton that go to WMOCO, and those folks there know who they are, and we want to make sure they're applying, for scholarships from us. And then we also have other scholarships that are provided by families. I do a scholarship for my brother.
Tell us a little bit about him.
Okay, he was a fireman, and he passed away due to COVID right at the very beginning of COVID. He was a retired fireman, and he has been a fireman all his life. He came up through the Explorer program, which is part of the Boy Scouts of America, but it's tied to fire departments. And I can remember when he was 12 years old and the fire radio would go off. My sister Kathy would go in and wake him up because nobody else could wake him up. He'd go out to the end of the driveway, and one of the firemen coming by would pick him up and off to the fire. And he'd help out with things that the explorers could do in those situations. But he ended up being a career fireman, finishing up his career at Grease Ridge as a lieutenant. So he retired, and it wasn't too long after he retired that he acquired COVID and just never made it out.
And do you recall any of the recipients of that scholarship?
Well, there hasn't been one yet.
Okay.
So the first year it was for an Explorer, but the Explorer program isn't as strong as it used to be. So I'm changing it up so that it's going to be any, child or grandchild of a firefighter from a couple of different area fire departments here that he was affiliated with.
Well, you had mentioned earlier in the podcast that you want to give back, and one of the ways is the Hilton Alumni Association, and that's another way to give back in honor of your brother, and I think it means a lot.
Yeah, for me, when I was retiring, I felt, okay, I can retire, but I can't stop doing things. I truly believe everybody needs purpose. Okay, and for anybody that's looking for their purpose, and doesn't have purpose and wants to have purpose and is interested in working, for instance, with the Alumni Association, they can contact me. They can contact us through our website, which is www.hiltonalumniassociation.org, or through email, which is hiltonalumniassociation@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all sorts of opportunities for people to work with us. People will say, well, I don't have those skills. Well, you don't need skills. We need hands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And everybody has something that they can contribute. So again, we're looking for board members. We're looking for people just to help us out at our events. We're looking for people that may want to donate or set up a scholarship for a family member or in memory of somebody or anything like that in order to give back. So there are lots of opportunities with us where you can do things, and it provides good purpose, and I think it's comforting purpose too, because you know you're doing good.
Talk a little bit about how your health is going. I know from your sister battled through a couple situations and still going strong.
All right, I'm not dying. However, I'm a little bit bionic. In my career, I used to be a long distance runner, and I was a tennis player. And as an adult, I played competitively. And over the years, I had a lot of joint wear. Athletic shoes aren't then what they are today. So over the last several years, I've had my hip replaced. In 1 year, just a little over a year ago, the same year, I had both of my knees replaced.
Okay.
And the amazing thing is, I'm still playing tennis.
Nice.
And I'm still playing tennis. They're all younger than me. Everybody's younger than me, and they're getting hurt. And here I am, the bionic person here, and I'm lucky enough, that I still have the capability to be active, and that technology, where I needed technology, has been able to serve me well. And I can tell you, there were times when it was hard for me to get out of the car to walk into a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have a bone in my body that hurts. Mm-hmm. It's just a miracle, absolute miracle.
And you get up at 6:47 a.m.
6:47.
Any bucket list items on the Rick Francis agenda?
I do not have a bucket list item. Travel. A lot of people say, I want to go here, I want to go there.
You've been a lot of places.
I've been there. So,
right.
So you got that. And I think on my bucket list, I just want to be able to enjoy my kids and my grandkids and enjoy life and have fun. I'm still working. My kids thought I was crazy when I retired. And then I announced that I got my real estate license and I'm starting a real estate business. One of my sons said, Dad, are you crazy? I'm only 38 and I can't wait to retire.
They don't make them like they used to. They really don't. Couple more questions, but I reached out to Kristen Polini, who is involved in the Hilton Alumni Association, and she said this about you. Rick was an integral member of the launching of the Hilton Alumni Association. In all of my interactions with Rick, he's incredibly collaborative and deeply invested in the Hilton community, specifically the students and families of the Hilton Central School District. His desire to give back to the community that helped shape his personal success is admirable. That's some nice words.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
And a couple more things. Movies. Got any recommendations for the audience? Past movies, present? I don't go to movies.
You're going to think I'm crazy, but the only movie I ever go back and rewatch is The Mask.
Okay.
Because I love the music.
Okay. All right. TV show. Favorite TV show?
Well, I like the competitive ones. Survivor.
Okay.
I'd like to watch that. Bachelor, not so much.
Does Jan like to watch The Bachelor?
No.
No.
No, we kind of avoid those.
But you watch? She likes the Survivor.
I watch Survivor. She doesn't.
Okay.
She goes in the other room.
My daughter likes Survivor. A favorite book or a book you're presently reading?
Okay, I am not currently reading a book. I have probably not read a book in 2 years.
Okay.
I used to read all the time, but right now I am so busy between working my real estate business and right now casino night, for instance, starting in January until the end of April is another full-time job for me. I mean, literally full-time job.
Okay.
So my bandwidth. And you know what? I think about that. I think when I retire, I'm going to start reading again because I do enjoy reading.
Favorite relaxing activity?
Okay. I like to fish. Okay. And since I bequeathed my boat to my oldest son, whenever I want to go fishing, he takes me fishing. I play tennis. For me, that's relaxing. I can't run anymore because the doctors don't want me putting all that pounding onto my joint. But outside of that, I used to snow ski.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like downhill or
downhill?
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't do that anymore. When I had my hip replaced, the doctor told me the one thing you can't do is fall. So I said, so skiing is out, right?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about skiing is I love skiing. When my kids were little, we'd go to Bristol and they were little, like maybe 3 or 4 years old. And we put skis on them and I would spread my legs. They'd get in between my legs and put one arm around one leg, one arm around the other leg, and we'd ski the whole mountain together. And now both of my sons are expert skiers.
Okay.
So.
Do the grandkids ski too, or are they still too young yet?
The grandkids ski a little bit off and on. The weather hasn't been, they're young, and the weather hasn't been great the last couple of years.
Don't want to ruin that pitcher's arm or that batting technique. You kind of intimated at this, but what makes Hilton so special if you could put it into like 3 words or?
Yeah, I would say when you think about comfort food, you're thinking that grilled cheese and tomato soup or macaroni cheese or whatever. Well, as a place to live, Hilton's kind of like the comfort food of
I like
living.
that analogy.
It's comfortable. It's still got a village. It's still a small town. It's still a center for activities. And that's why we bring casino night. We very much try to have casino night in Hilton and not to go off to another venue that's outside of the Hilton area, but to keep it in Hilton. So it's just a good, friendly, warm place. And as a real estate agent, I can tell you, this is where people want to buy houses and raise their kids.
Yeah, I always see new houses are going up, and I know the schools are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Any final question? Any question that I didn't ask that I should have?
Boxer or briefs?
Well, boys and girls, men and women, this has been Rick Francis on the Big H Podcast. Rick, it's been great getting to know you and learn more about you, and I think that's why I like to do the podcast, and I think the community also needs to see and hear from you and people like you. I really appreciate you being on the show tonight, and we'll have more guests coming up in future podcasts.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find